Okay.
Here we are. Table scraps, scrapping like some scrapping table scrap. Or maybe what has happened is you have scrapped the other table for this new table, Ben.
We have. It's Table Scrap. Welcome to Table Scraps.
Welcome to Table Scrap, everyone.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Ben.
How's it going?
Going great.
We have a new table here. Last time, the issue was the previous table was very nice, but it was like see-through and it was confusing with this thing back here. But now I have assembled a beautiful little table appropriate for table scraps that there's table building, and it comes with a drawer.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Dress me up in your love.
It's great. I'm so excited for the new drawer. And I'm excited for this new table because it's also hexagonal.
Oh, hexagonal.
And that's hexagonal.
Whoa.
And hexes are a very popular shape.
They are in our hobby.
In the world of board gaming, we love a hex, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny because hexes are not like, I would not say that they're a top tier shape in the world of shapes. Like top tier isn't like popular, right?
No, I get it, but that seems like a hot take.
No, but if you think about it, like growing up, what were your go-to shapes? Square, triangle, rectangle, circle.
Fair. But like when you go to a bathroom, it's usually hex tile, right?
Well, I'm not saying the presence. The presence is everywhere. But in terms of like top of mind shapes, yeah. Thanks for crinkling your water
sorry
bottle,
about that.
Right in the podcast.
That's right. We won't be doing that.
Ears. Yeah, I should have gotten you a glass. If only we had a glass around here. There's a vase behind you.
That's right. That's right.
You can drink out of that water bottle. Just don't make so much noise.
I will not be drinking out of that water bottle.
It's not
anywhere.
that hard. It's my fault. As the one who's actually the physical host of this. Like this is my place. Like I should have provided you with a glass.
I think you're doing great.
Thank you. If you were like growing up, like if you were to say what's your favorite shape, what do you think? What do you honestly think your favorite shape was growing up?
So, I was in geometry class. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. And so I had taken geometry over for summer school because I didn't want to. Anyway, so the geometry teacher goes like, there are no quadrilaterals that have equal like diagonals except for a rectangle.
Quadrilateral meaning a shape with four sides?
Yep. And then I kind of raised my hand being the whatever. I go, what about an isosceles trapezoid? And then she goes, yeah, I guess you're right.
Wait, sorry. Because I'm still kind of waking up. The premise, the thesis was there's no quadrilateral that has
equal diagonals.
Equal diagonals,
except for a rectangle. And a square is a rectangle.
Right. So you're saying a nice isosceles trapezoid?
So basically, a trapezoid is like two parallels and two diagonals, but if the diagonals are at the same angle.
But not all four diagonals are at the same angle.
But these, the diagonal from one end across the other would be the same.
Well, these two are the same, but these two and these two are the same, but all four are not the same.
Well, no, but the diagonal between, like, if you take one vertice to the next.
Not angle, diagonals.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, so she was going like, I guess you're right, and then she was snide enough to go, I guess, there's an advantage to taking this class a second time.
Oh,
and then
wow.
And then the people who knew me in the class who also took, they go, no, this is his first time.
Wow. Wait, so she was accusing you of taking this class a second time?
Because of summer school.
Oh gosh. Wait, this still has, so
that's my favorite shape because
because you outsmarted your.
Because I had people.
If you were like a normal person.
That's big if, but yes, if I was a normal person.
If you were a normal person, because like, I'm not saying by the time you were taking geometry in school, I'm saying when you were a kid. If you were a kid playing around in the playground and someone said, what is your favorite shape?
I think I would say a square.
Oh, interesting. I feel like as a kid, I might have said triangle.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's class. I feel like square, triangle, and circle. Those are like your three shapes.
Sure.
But when it comes to board gaming, hexes are like up there with them.
They're S tier.
If not higher.
They're S tier.
They're probably like the top.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is just crazy that we just love hexagons.
I think what happens if you do triangles, it's probably too busy looking. And if you do squares, it doesn't feel dynamic. And the hexagon has the the best blend of what you call it, like usability and dynamic.
Well, because like a hexagon, the way we normally use them is to create boards.
Yeah,
And we put all the
100%.
hexagons together. So it's like it creates more adjacencies. Like a triangle feels like it would be great, but it's actually, you don't have enough adjacencies with it. And it is too busy because it's like, ugh, I'm already in a new triangle. Like you have to go through, like it's really easy to get to a new triangle, right? Like there's a lot of triangles around.
Sure. There are 3.
You know, there's like a lot of triangles comprise the same amount of space that you could do with just a few hexes, you know? And like a square, I think like well, here's a question. Squares, I think one of the reasons why we don't like squares as much in creating a modular game board sometimes, although we do have them like in Food Chain, Magnate, etc. I feel like it's the corners.
They're too right.
It's the they are too right. It's the like not orthogonal. It's the diagonal element of it that like, is this adjacent or is this not adjacent? You know, you see
I see. Sure.
Right. And I think that's like frustrating. Whereas there's never a question when it comes to hexagons.
I agree with that. Like I would say for me, when I look at like a grid, I feel like it's static. I feel like it is not as intriguing to my eye. And because of that, you know, there are great reasons to have like a grid.
Yeah. Great reasons.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, traffic, you know, like
grids are really one of the top arrangements we have in our society.
100%.
Like that's like top tier. I can't imagine actually something better than a grid in terms of arranging things.
Like you don't see city streets in hex form.
Could you even imagine?
It'd be difficult.
Well, that's why, by the way, that's why I got very frustrated that the board game Suburbia was all hexes. But if you look at the art on Suburbia, it's very tricky. The pieces are hexes, but when you put them together, it creates a grid of art. Did you ever notice that?
I have never even played Suburbia.
Okay, well,
I'm a failure.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes. Well, but it's an interesting use of grids with hexes. So you were saying about grids.
Well, back to your road thing. Like there is one street in Beverly Hills that is that vertice of like what looks like a trap, like that trap, like a hexagon.
What people who do not live in Los Angeles may not realize is that there is probably the worst intersection in the entire world.
It's crazy.
In terms of like the sheer size, what's going on with it, and like its location as like a prime, you know, I'm sure you could go to many places around the world where there are crazy intersections like this, but in terms of size, and
usage,
and also what is there to regulate the traffic flow.
Yeah, it's substandard. It's not safe.
It's not, and I don't understand. Basically, it's what is it, like 8 roads converging? Or
it seems like it.
6. It's like an asterisk.
It seems, and there's the point where you go like, I don't know why this isn't on the news every day.
Why are there not asterisks? So it's this giant asterisk, and then what happens is you have this big empty space.
100%.
And it's all stop signs.
Yeah.
And there's no traffic light. And if you want to go, you kind of just like inch into the middle. It's like you're going into like a bullfight. You're like, okay, I'm exactly a gladiator. You're like, I'm going in.
That's how I feel. It feels like a bullfight.
It is the worst. And you try to avoid it, but the weird thing is the roads in Beverly Hills have this weird effect where they just kind of like, you just converge in it. Like if you go into those little side roads too long, you will wind up in that intersection against your will.
Sure,
and then you realize, oh, I've got
it's like a Minotaur's maze.
Yeah. And you just go in and you say, okay, I'm going in, everyone. Don't hit me.
Yeah. No. So that's why we don't have hexagonal, I believe. I think
the hexagonal intersection wouldn't be too bad. I mean, think about Settlers of Catan, which I don't know. Did Settlers of Catan kick off the whole hex craze in our hobby?
Maybe, but like, I don't know. We don't live in that. I suppose here's a solution that
we don't live in Catan.
A solution that could work are roundabouts. You know,
people do not know how to use roundabouts
in America.
Properly.
They do not know how to use roundabouts.
Yes.
And so, and here's the thing. I might, you might not know this, but I lived in Australia, and they have roundabouts. And so I used to be able to use roundabouts, but now when I hit a roundabout in LA, I mess it up.
Well, the roundabouts, okay, I just want to say this. This is how the roundabouts work in LA because they are so inappropriate. The way I believe a roundabout should work is that you have a circular path, right? And you have like an inner and outer lane, or maybe more lanes.
Depending how big.
But at the very least, an inner lane and an outer lane, and then there's a circle in the middle that's usually like grass or something. And the idea is that as you approach the roundabout, it's all yield signs, right? So you sort of like merge into it and you go around until you can sort of have to merge out of it. And the idea is that you sort of like flow through the circle and you just get spit out where you need to be.
Like the very famous one is in Paris, right?
Yes. Arc de Triomphe, etc. European Vacation, famously. So what they do in LA is sometimes they just put a roundabout in almost like they just feel like it's a good idea, but they don't actually know how to do it. So there'll be like a normal small 4-way intersection, and then they will put stop signs at every intersection, every street going into the intersection, and then they'll put a little thing in the middle of the intersection, like little cones, and they say it's a roundabout. So you have to stop, and then you have to go around. So if you want to make a left, you have to stop, look both ways, then go around and get up. If you're doing the stop sign, you don't need the roundabout.
Like yes. Well, what can I say? Like,
So what does this have to do with hexagons?
Well, I'm saying like instead of like a 6-way asterisk like a hexagon vertice, a roundabout vertice should work.
Right.
But maybe not. Like,
But like, so if you go back to Catan, the reason why I know hexagons would actually be all right in an intersection is because in Catan, when you place your settlements, it's always going to be, there's three lines. It's never more than that. So it's always going to be just a 3-way intersection, which may actually be oddly safer.
Sure. Okay. I'll give you that. Maybe we'll see.
Like,
yeah, but you put a roundabout in a 3-way, that would be.
The problem is that like if you have a hexagonal grid, if you wanted to go like across the grid, you have to remember this time I'm left, this time I'm right, this time I'm left.
And you do that wiggly.
You have to wiggle and you have to remember, and that's hard.
For the podcast people, just so you know, on the video, we're doing a wiggle with our hands. Like you're missing a lot of production value here.
It's a wiggle. It's like, don't blame it on the sunshine, don't blame it on the moon. So I think I see why now. I think it's actually the wiggle would be a real issue.
Yeah, sure. I suppose like I'm not anti-grid. I'm pro-grid.
But in terms of gaming, though, which is why we're talking about this all, we don't seem to like a grid as much as a hexagonal grid.
So here's imagine this. Imagine you were looking at you're in LA, and you're in a hot air balloon, and you look down in LA. Would you prefer to see grids, or would you prefer to see hexagonal? Like just for purely aesthetic.
I think I would like to see hexagonal.
Me too.
I think that would look amazing.
And I think that's what it is. Like this, the practicality of living in it versus the aesthetic looking down at it.
Old cities didn't give a shit. Old cities, if you pre-car back in, those were called organic cities.
Sure.
I actually took a class in college about the history of urban geography or something like that. And you have planned cities versus organic cities. And a planned city would be like Los Angeles or Phoenix or like most of Manhattan, where you have a grid. But an organic city is like
Kyoto.
Like people built a house here and they built a house here, and the streets just wind and curve and intertwine. Sure. And we love touring those, right? We love organic shapes, but in terms of actually dealing with them, they're a real pain.
Yeah, no, it's a scaling issue, right? Like the more people that you have to deal with, the more you're going to want a certain streamlinedness. Whereas, if there were 4 houses, be a grid, be a hex. It doesn't matter.
So we like the look of a hex. Like if we're on a plane landing in LAX, we kind of wish we could see a hex down there. So is that why we like them? You're saying that's maybe one of the reasons why we like them in a board game?
It comes down to the dynamic visual aspect. Like we're always looking down from the hot air balloon onto a map. So, obviously, I think we've solved this.
Well, question: what about a brick pattern? Because here's
interesting.
Here's the thing.
That's actually interesting.
A brick pattern, I think, is aesthetically. I think we all enjoy a brick pattern, and yet we never do it in gaming. So, like in Food Chain Magnate, for instance, we set up to create our town. We create a standard grid. Which I think makes sense because there's like rules about how many spaces of things are away. But like we never, ever, ever lay out a board game. And I'm sure there's exceptions to it, but largely I can't think of too many off the top of my head where we set them up in brick format. And I wonder, is part of that because it's not as neat? Like we can't like lock things into place as well.
Sure.
And then you have the edges that are kind of crazy, but hexes sort of have edges that are crazy. But if you do it in the right shape, it's sort of a uniform. But with Catan, for instance, we put a nice little frame around it. Or even if you have certain, like with Twilight Imperium, you can get certain things on Etsy that put things around it to smooth it out, so it seems nice. But like with a brick shaped thing, it's almost like, I think what it is that with a hex, you may have weird shapes. And even like if you were to play Roads and Boats, or even like last night I played Railways of the Lost Atlas, and you make a map out of hexes, and it could be like a big blob, an amoeba, and it's all hexy jagged lines, but it's all uniform. It's like uniformly jagged, as opposed to a brick shape, like maybe this row is static, and the next row is a little bit to the right, and the next row is static again, but it's not quite as lined up with the first static row, and then the one that's offset is now not quite, so it'll look really messy. Like
I think that you bring up a very interesting point. I feel like brick would make a certain direction a lot faster, right? And then the other direction, like more like the hexagonal, the wavy.
Yeah. And like I've seen pyramid shapes. People are okay with pyramid shapes. Like I've seen that before with things where you have like a 4 and then a 3 and then 2. Like Yokohama has that. Because again, I think there's like a thing of like centering it, so it feels nice. But like if you were to do bricks, and the thing, because bricks it provides lots of adjacencies the way hexes do.
Yeah, no, interesting.
But people would never stand for a brick layout.
Like I think a right angle is actually the problem. The right angles make things feel stuck to me. But but maybe because squares were my favorite shape as a kid. Yeah, I'm just over squares.
Yeah, I think. I'd be interested to see if a brick shape thing could work. Trapezoids, you do like your isosceles trapezoid. What about a nice trapezoidal?
You could make a trapezoidal thing that would be similar to like brick patterns. So you just invert and invert and invert. It'd be like a brick, but like slanted. But I don't think I don't have the vision for a board game, high trapezoidal board game.
Do you have like a favorite hexagonal based? I keep on saying hexagonal. It's hexagonal. I don't have.
Hexagonal. I say hexagonal too.
I assume it's hexagonal.
Sure. No,
because now it's one thing to say hexagonal in a conversation, but now that we're committed to being like on video and like making a record of this, we can't say it incorrectly.
I would challenge that. I'm sure we can say it incorrectly.
Do you feel like hexes at this point have become kind of like a visual signifier for gamers to see each other in the wild?
I think you say that, and I go like, probably. I think it's a low-key dog whistle.
Mm-hmm. Like if you saw someone with a T-shirt that had like a bunch of hexes on it, you would say that's probably like a gamer.
100%. I think I did not realize that until you just said it. But I go like, oh, there would be a part of me goes like, I wonder if that person plays board games.
Yeah. Like it's kind of, because I think we see it a lot in terms of different content creators. Sure. They add hexes in, or it's just it's become such a visual signifier, right?
Totally.
Yeah. What's the best use of a hex outside of board gaming?
Hex outside of board.
The thing is, the hexes don't. Are stop sign maybe is that a
octagon.
Hex? That's an octagon, right?
I think hex. Maybe Capsule Hotel.
Do hexes really exist outside of board gaming in a significant way? I'm just looking at it right now. Look at this. Do we really don't see them?
I see it in tiling.
Hexclad pans.
Hexclad pans. That's right. Shout out to Mike Kanack there and Gordon Ramsay. If you would like to give us some hexclad pans, feel free to.
Yeah, I'm always accepting hexclad pans.
But I think when I think of hexes, though, I think of bathrooms. Bathroom tile.
Bathroom tile. Yeah, that's a strong one. That's actually a really strong one.
Mm-hmm.
So, but interior design does not claim the hex the way that board gaming has.
No, 100%. 100%.
And there's no other shape is gonna really topple hexes.
I mean, it's pretty S tier right now. I'm just saying
it's the best shape.
I think if we were to have restart this and talk, what is the best board game shape?
Okay, wait. Let's rank it. Okay, best board game shape. Number 1, hex.
Hex.
Okay, what's the number 2 best board game shape?
I think square. I think
square of a rectangle.
I think so. I think like square is is a narcissistic special triangle. Look at me, look at me.
Yeah.
You know?
No, square is a rectangle. rectangle. Really.
Did they say triangle?
You said triangle.
God, man,
I don't want to
I'm
correct
sle-
you
I'm-
since you had that moment with your teacher.
I'm sleepy too. Yes, square is a narcissistic rectangle.
It really is. Square. I don't enjoy squares.
Yeah, that's
Because of that, I do feel like they're kind of like cocky versions of rectangles.
Yeah,
Rectangles are kind of like, oh, hey. And
Like-
then squares come along like, I'm perfect.
like this. I'm perfect. I'm completely symmetrical.
Yeah. But guess what? They're not as stable as a triangle.
Triangle is pretty. Triangle is pretty good. Like I would say. I still say square as number two. Yeah.
I mean, I think for like board gaming, square is number 2. I mean, yeah. I mean, in terms of like just pieces and shapes that we want to see aesthetically, it would be great. Oh, you know what I'm going to say? Actually, no.
You're gonna take down square.
I am going to say, in terms of a shape I enjoy in board gaming, but it's hard to pull off. It's limited use, but in terms of being able to pull it off, what I love is a circle.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Like a circular board. When you sit down and there's a board that's a big circle, tell me you don't get excited.
It depends. Like I get excited when it's a space game. But there was that French where it's a circle and you're going around the circle. You're trying. It takes place in France. I can't remember.
Was that the Arc de Triomphe game where you're in?
Yeah.
I'm just joking. I have
No.
it was. Paris. Yeah.
Paris. It was.
It really was. It was a game that took place in a roundabout.
Yeah. And I was like,
I don't know. I mean, I thought that game, I really did not enjoy that game. It may have been some of the people I played with. I played with someone who like didn't even know how to roll a die. And like, it was just like, it was like painful for me. So it may have been a perfectly fun game that I just was not able to access the fun with because the people around me were driving me nuts. But one of my favorite parts of that was it was a big circle.
Yeah. No.
Actually, I would wager to say that like circle may be my favorite board game shape.
Whoa.
Yeah, because if I go to it's weird. We're being kind of abstract because like, are we talking about pieces? Are we talking about, but I think for me, in terms of like, if I were to see a board game laid out that's in a circle shape, I'm way more excited about that shape than I would be than a whole series of hexes put together.
You know what? I would say this. I think that is legitimate. You can say that it's your favorite shape. I don't think you can say it is the best shape.
Hex is probably the best shape.
Yeah, yes.
But my favorite shape,
I'm
going to say circle, and I'm thinking that my favorite circular games, recently SETI has been really killing it as a circle game, although it has weird things, spindles on it. Sure. Like that's the problem with the circle game is that like it's hard to keep it looking like it's hard to keep it all as a circle. So SETI has like the aliens come out like this, and then there's a board over here. So it's circles. And it's like the things move. It's really all about being a circle, but it has weird like antennae.
My response is that's why hex is so good because, it's sort of like a circle that can deal with that chaos.
Let me tell you something though. Fromage, also a big circle game. And that one really leans into being a circle. Everything about that game is circles. Like that is a game that truly is. Actually, that is a game that leans into shapes.
Interesting.
Because
I haven't played it, so I don't know.
It's literally a circle. And it's in 4 quadrants. So basically each circle is a quarter, and the quarter parallels, it looks like a wedge of cheese, right?
Sure.
Because like a wedge of like Parmesan or something will be like triangle on one end, like circle on another end, cone shaped, I guess you could say, maybe like from a 2-dimensional cone shape.
Love it.
So you have 4 quadrants, and then your player pieces are wedges of cheese. I feel like I had... fromage had been lingering around here. Like it had been sitting back here for like weeks. And then I got the aging, and I got the hex table, and I moved fromage out. And if I had it right here, I'd pull it out and I'd just show you. But so your player pieces are wedges of cheese. And what's great is on your turn, you place your wedge of cheese on the wedge of the circle that is facing you.
Sure.
And the direction of your wedge of cheese is going to be impactful. Because after your turn is done, everyone rotates this board. The circle board rotates. So we're also leaning into the motion of a circle. And then any pieces on the board where the wedge is pointing at you, so the triangle is pointing at you, you get to take those pieces back, and then you can place them anew. So if your wedges of cheese are not facing you, you have to wait until the board rotates to that point. So like if you place your wedge of cheese in one direction, like maybe aiming to the left, then it's going to require 3 rotations before it is aimed at you again.
Sure.
So those actions are more powerful. It's my way of saying that this is a game that leans into shapes and movements of shapes and directionality and geometry, which is very fascinating. And cheese.
I feel like now I'm hungry.
Yes.
So do you like Trivia Pursuit? Because that was a round and and wedgy.
That is probably the preeminent round wedgy game. But however, the roundness and the wedginess is purely design and has no.
It could have
bearing.
easily been a rectangle. It could be a grid
Easily. Whereas fromage, the shape it's actually like inherent to the gameplay, which is really clever. There was a game about pizza. I think Bezier Games came out with it, where it's like you're making a slice of pizza, which I like. And then another circle game that I really enjoy. Okay, a few of them. Pulsar.
Yeah, Pulsar's great.
That's great. That's a big circle, but you add things to the edge of it, and it looks really weird with the stuff added to the edge.
I don't know. I like Pulsar.
It's a great game, and visually, that's exciting.
Sure.
Is Soul Age of a Star? Is that a circular board, or is it a square board with a circular stuff in the middle? I think it's a square board.
I think it's square board. Yeah, if I remember correctly. I haven't played it in ages.
And I was gonna say CO2 is a square board, but it's circular, or it's a big circular presence in the middle, right?
I feel like it's circular.
I mean, does it count? Does it count? If the board itself is rectangular, but the artwork and the presentation and your play area is basically a circle, I think that counts.
I think that counts. Like Democker is circular.
That is circular.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So no, circle is good. Like you can, if you can you can press it. Like I feel like there's a strong circle contingent here.
But I feel like you don't. But I feel like where are you at though? I feel like you have a better shape. The way you're saying like circle is good. I feel like you have a better
we're talking
shape.
about number 2, right? Hex is number 1.
Hex is like the best shape.
Yeah. And so we're looking at number 2, and I said square because of utility.
Yeah.
But you're saying like circle has a lot of uses, and I'm like, yeah, I could see that.
But it's not good for modularity. It's the worst, actually. It's arguably the worst for module stuff. Right?
Yeah. So it comes down to, I think I played Eclipse once, and Tom was playing the plants, and he was using the plants to a great effect. And we're talking about the ships of the plants. And he goes like, they're not bad. They're just limited. And I feel that the circle is limited. It's not bad. It's just limited. Whereas a square is probably more versatile.
Right.
So I think circles probably elicit more imagination.
Yeah. I feel like if you're going to be non-modular, circle is like the most exciting.
Like if you don't need a grid, if you don't need it, I would go with circle. But right. I think most games would probably lend itself to grid-esque play. I don't know.
The thing is with squares also is that I think this gets back to what I was trying to say before about the corners, is that there's always a lot of discussion about what is and what isn't adjacent. Orthogonally adjacent only, diagonal only. And hexes, we don't have to even deal with that.
Yep.
But and circles, you're not even dealing with adjacents.
You're not going there.
You're not going there.
But I suppose, like in a way, and this is in very tangential, like franchise has a bunch of circles, but it's more like a foam where you have all these little circles, and then they're connected through various lines. Which,
I mean, what's great about franchise is yes, there's lots of foam because it's like bubbles, right?
And some bigger, some smaller,
and ribbons, lots of ribbons.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the chaos of that board.
Yeah, no,
people don't. People talk about Ian O'Toole a lot. They talk, they think about him with like Vital Lacerda and all these these very big splashy games that he comes in and does the graphic design for. And he does smaller games too, but people don't realize he did this map for this game franchise. It's like a Queen game. It was originally some other game like Medieval something or another from like 2007 or whatever. And this map of the United States, and it represents different markets in the United States and how they could be how they could be connected and how your franchise could sprawl out. It is the most chaotic map, but it's awesome.
No, it's great. It's the most clear, unclear map there is.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great use of shapes to sort of create chaos, and you can't really see where things are adjacent. And
I would tell you right now that map would not work with squares.
100% not. If you replace those circles with squares, it would be because you have state lines, or this. You don't see the states, but you have state regions, and those are kind of your hard lines, right?
Like there was like in our group we play Dune a lot. With the Avalon Hill game, but like there was a remap of called Rex,
right?
And
Twilight Imperium kind of
exactly
re-theme,
and it could have worked except for the fact that their map was much like franchise, but it did not work in the same way that franchise worked. It just didn't.
So wait, the map was chaotic, or something?
It was kind of like circular, maybe circular, or it was some shapes, but it was all around the place, and it just didn't work in the way that it does in franchise. There's a cleanliness, and that's why I feel like circles are limited. They're very specific, and like it works perfectly. In fact, I don't know of another shape would work for franchise. I think only circles would work.
I think circles they're like an exciting shape for some reason. I think there's something about seeing a circle that like there's almost like there's like an immediate focal point, which is usually the center of the circle. Like usually the action is moving to the center, or maybe even it's coming out. It's like there's something like the way the circle can both draw you in and also expand you out at the same time, which is why they're very like visually evocative, but they're not good for adjacencies, and they can be chaotic because you don't have clean lines necessarily with circles. When a circle on its own, yes, and if they're concentric, yes, then it becomes rings. But then the moment that you're trying to put multiple circles together, then it's like a lot of,
it's a mess.
They have to be like, the only way that they can be clean is if they're all like the same size and it sort of looks like spheres, but then they're sort of like, then they become suddenly cold because then it's like these shapes that are not touching, right? Because they can only get so close 100%. To each other, whereas hexes can burrow right in on each other. That's the thing. Hexes are very intimate. They hug each other. They fit right in. They slot in. It's very satisfying.
Well, you know what? Another shape that does that, triangles. Triangles are even huggier. Like, in fact,
triangles hug. Well, no, but like, yes, they hug, but like, they hug and then close off.
Well, I mean, like,
like a hex is always going to hug and then leave itself out there to be hugged, whereas a triangle will hug and say, like, well, you can stand back to back with me and create your own hug, but I'm only hugging one or two other triangles right now. Whereas a hex is always going to be like inviting more and more hugs.
Okay.
And a circle will not hug at all.
Yeah, I think that's the another draw, plus or minus of circles, is that circles are inherently withholding.
Yeah. Well, however, there's no illusion.
Oh, sure.
Whereas a square.
Sure.
A square will come face to face with you.
Narcissistic rectangle?
A square or a rectangle will. Okay. A square doesn't even hug. The square doesn't hug, but it will get up in your face, but it won't hug you, right?
Sure.
You're never gonna lock. You never lock in with a square. It always feels loose, and that's why when you do a brick pattern, it's jarring because the bricks could slide, and then you have like you can't have like a nice even thing unless you really set some sort of boundary.
So the way I would describe it is a square has the illusion of intimacy, but there is not.
There is no intimacy. And a rectangle, by the way, what's annoying with a rectangle is that like rectangles are so stupid. They're just big oafs because you don't really know what they're going to fit into. I think they're looking to hug, but they're too big. They fit in. They make strange things. It's like
they're trying.
They're trying, but they don't.
They're not as haughty as like a square.
But they're also kind of demanding because they have to be oriented the proper way.
You do not have a lot of empathy for people who just don't know who they are quite yet.
Well, I think it's that with the hexes is that the hexes just want to love.
Yeah, sure.
They want to love and they want to receive love and they want to give love. Right?
I think the thing about a hex is like they have found the balance. They know who they are.
They click in and they're ready to be clicked in. Whereas
and
a rectangle, it's like, okay, you got to rotate it.
A rectangle is still trying to find itself.
Just look at Tetris.
Yeah.
Just look at what happens when that 4 comes in. Like in some ways, it's the best thing that ever happened. It's just like your hero. But then other times, it's just the big oaf that like ruins the party.
Or like you bring in the square when you see a square.
The square is the worst. I'm sorry.
You see a square in Tetris, you're like, oh, what a jerk.
I know, always. You have to have the
like,
perfect slot for the square for it to be any use.
It again. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with the rectangle is that like with the long rectangle, the four long, is that a lot of times it's almost like a surprise party. It's like you're gathering all the guests and you're waiting for the person. You're like, okay, they're coming. Yes, so everyone gets arranged. They get ready. And like usually the surprise goes off well and the rectangle slots right in. It's like, surprise, you just hit a Tetris. 4 rows go away. But like sometimes that thing comes down and it like you rotate it to get in position and like, boom.
Read the room. Read the room.
And now it's created more chaos than you could ever imagine. Well, this brings up polyominoes.
Okay, we can talk about polyominoes.
I personally find them to be annoying.
I imagine. I can see that.
Like I see the fun, and it is fun when you get them to really click in. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, I don't know. I think they're like very showy.
Showy, interesting.
I think they know. They're like, yeah, like because we're not only a shape, but we're like a shape that you like are gonna create with a lot of intention created.
It's so interesting because I have a very different like relationship with poly. I look at them as like Island of Misfit Toys kind of thing. Where they're going like, oh, we don't have the buzz, the cachet as those regular shapes, but we still are worthy of something. We're still just a shape. That's how I see it. I mean, like, you know
what it is. You know what it is. They were the nerds, and then they became popular, and now they like forgot that they were ever nerds, and now it's like, okay, like,
are we talking about Taylor Swift here?
Yeah. I think polyominoes are the Taylor Swift of shapes. I think that they are like. They were the nerds. They became super popular. Now they're like a thing, and now it's like, okay, all right, we get a polyomino.
Well,
like,
you never want to give anyone power.
No, I think. What's your favorite Okay, of the Tetris shapes, what's your favorite polyomino, and what's your least favorite? The T is my favorite. Also,
the T is great.
The T is so versatile. It fits into any place that annoying zigzag. The zigzag is actually my least favorite.
Which one, right or left? See,
that's the problem. That's the problem. Whereas the T just gets it done.
Yeah.
And the best is that when you slot the T in with like nose down.
Yeah, 100%.
And then take out 2. And then it does the same work as the square.
Yeah, no, like I think the T is my favorite, and partly because, it has high utility. Mm-hmm. There's never a time where I go like, oh,
never
a time where you go like,
always happy with the T.
That's right. I go like good T is great.
Yeah, and like the L-shaped one. The L-shaped one is all right. Like I like that one. That's like top tier. However, it feels like it gets you close to the peaks of that rectangle, but it never quite delivers. But sometimes, I mean, it's solid, and I like it, but it can also leave you with a mess.
Once again, right L or left L, and the way I look at the L is like it's like a good friend who has like an issue, like one trigger, and then all of a sudden, like if you hit the trigger, you're like, God, damn it!
Now you have like a roof.
Now I have to deal with this bit, but
Now, in terms of board gaming polyominoes, is there a polyomino game that you particularly like?
There are 0 polyomino games. Zero. There's not a polyomino.
So you're making me seem like I'm the crazy one for saying that polyominoes.
I'm not trying to make you feel I'm crazy at all.
You're the one who actually actively hates on them.
Like I don't think it's active. I think it's a passive, which is worse.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't think like name some polyomino games like Feast for Odin, right?
Feast for Odin.
Nope.
There's an Patchwork.
Nope. Horseless Carriage. Is that polyomino?
I think that sort of counts, or like, that's definitely like, there's like, rectangles and squares. Those are not polyominoes, but there's definitely like that, like figuring out rectangles and squares. Yeah, I like that. I like rectangles, like figuring out rectangles and squares, despite all my previous discussion.
Maybe like what it is I'm like a secret anti-polyomino person, and like I'm forward with like polyomino empathy, but like but like you
don't actually want to deal with.
But at a party like with just the regular shapes, I'm just slurring it.
You want to hang out with the classics.
like hard R-ing it out.
Yeah. I'm like totally blanking on any polyomino games. I'm sure I have some. I'm looking at my game collection now. It's not something I'm like super drawn to as like a thing.
Yeah, no,
you know,
not at all.
But you know what? The one recently, a few months ago.
Wait, are you? I feel like the polyomino phase in board gaming has like
simmered.
Yeah.
It's still there. I think it's with us. It's just with us.
It's now. It's not the flavor. It's a flavor.
It's a flavor.
And I think I'm glad.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. It's fun, but it's not quite as interesting as a puzzle for me. But there's I feel like I'm actually pretty good at polyominoes. That's like I'm pretty good spatially figuring out where things should go. I am too. And I can't think of any of the polyomino games right now. But what I was going to say is we played a stacking game recently called Manara. Do you remember that? Yeah. And what's funny about that game is that you're building this kind of like temple. You have like these shapes that are like your floors of the temple, and you got these kind of pegs, and the shapes all have spots where you put the pegs, and once you put all the pegs on there, you put like another floor on top of the pegs. And the thing is that these shapes kind of take polyominoes and are like, okay, you think polyominoes are cool. We're going to show you the most chaotic shapes you could ever imagine in board games. I remember that. They are the most chaotic. There's like swooping curves and circles. And this one takes the chaos of a circle. Like what we talked about before, like circles don't mesh well with each other, right? Like they can do rings, but that's about it. And this one says, we see that and we're going to make that awkwardness of circles and curves. We're going to make that the game. And this is sort of like, it's almost like 3D franchise visually, right?
Yep, I remember.
And I think that's what makes it so fun is that it says like, fuck these right angles.
And as I said, like, you know, it is very like circles are great. They're just contextually specific.
Yeah. And I love that Manara leans into like, okay, try to make a building where you have curves that are going to be unstable and strange and and points and angles. Yeah. Like that's a really good use of.
Yeah, that's good.
I just realized something.
What's that?
Castel. Remember Castel?
Yeah.
Castel is this wonderful game where you are building human pyramids.
It sounds better than that. Like, you know, like you say it like that. It sounds.
It's a tradition in Catalonia.
That's right.
Where you may have seen it before or whatever, where people will climb on each other. It's like acrobats. Yeah. It's not acrobats, but people climb on each other and try to make these tall towers of humans.
Yep.
And so there's a game called Castel that is all about this. And in that one's all about, that's actually a very rectangular forward game.
Yeah. Like rectangles have a place.
Yeah. That's like, all about rectangles. But often to make an overarching pyramid shape, more or less. But kind of a tower.
Yeah. Like
not necessarily a pyramid, but could be.
Well, it's, you know, it's almost always going to turn into some form of triangle. Right?
Yeah, usually.
And
it could be a trapezoid, to be honest. Let's be honest.
Okay, yeah, let's be honest. You're aiming for the triangle, you're going to hit the trapezoid. You
might have a trapezoid.
Yeah.
And there could be just a big rectangle.
That's right.
If it goes awry.
But you know, like it's, you know, like it's just a bunch of dopey people, like, you know, standing on each other's shoulders.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah, that's a great use of rectangles. I just thought of something. Variation on circle. What about gears?
Whew.
Gears are circles, basically. That's a use of circles in a way that's very exciting.
Yeah, that, you know, like Sulkin is the game,
that's
right?
The one.
Yeah, and I feel like also like anything with a rondelle is kind of geary to me.
Yeah,
and I feel like I'm not known for enjoying rondelle games.
You're not known for that?
I'm not known for that. I'm not, like, people go, oh, Paul.
This is not.
Like they're not at cocktail parties going like, oh, like, you know, like what are you drinking? Not an old fashioned. He goes, oh, like, oh, you know, Paul. The guy who likes the.
So when you met the director of Wicked,
that's right,
and he was like, oh, you're Paul. You're not. You like rondelles, right?
Yeah, that's
he did
right.
not say that.
He did not say that. He might have thought it.
No, but you are not known for.
I'm not known for.
I do love a rondelle.
Yeah, no. Most people do. Like I
actually don't think most people do.
Really?
There are people, soulless people, who do not like rondelles.
Like I have no soul.
Because they don't get like, why would I be stuck in this thing where I have to go in this path?
Like Barrage, for example, is, you know, I find
circle game. That's a circle right there.
Yes,
that's a gear.
I would say it's multiple shapes, and it highlights each shape to its best efficiency.
No, I think circle would be the dom. Well, I mean, if I would say there's a dominant shape in barrage, it's the circle from the gear. Even though I think of cascading water, that's not really a shape. That's just line. Sure. Windmill Valley, gear, circles.
Yeah, no,
two circles going in.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
I know. Like
circles playing with circles. So circles don't. Okay. So circles, they do not hug.
I did not know this was going to be a circle talk.
It's no idea. We were going to talk about something completely different.
Yeah, we were.
we were going to talk about something completely differently, and then this table sent us down a path. But so circles, they do not slot together. They do not hug. Circles do not hug, but they do kiss. And when they kiss, it's great.
Interesting. I like that.
They kiss in a way that other shapes don't. Triangles could maybe do that.
Like I feel like triangles, like they're standoffish, but they will reluctantly work together.
Yes.
I think both circles and squares are very self-centered, but squares will always stay cold and aloof, whereas circles will have the moment of intimacy.
Yeah, circles, like, you just have to give circles the tools to be intimate, and then they get it on.
Like, not to be pro circle, but I think, like, they are intimate with the right shape, the right person.
No, they're only intimate with. Well, no, it doesn't, because it doesn't matter the shape of the circle as long as the circles have something that they can connect with. Like circles are basically like introverts.
Well, exactly. I'm saying like a square is always going to be withholding. It's its nature to be withholding.
The square is going to act like the square is just the worst.
Yeah. But a circle, like, in its aloneness, also longs for connection.
And then when it can finally find the connection, then it's like, it's the gear. It becomes gears.
Sure.
And it goes and goes and goes,
Sure.
and it's amazing. Whereas hexagons are just pure extrovert energy.
Yeah. Like,
they connect, they do things, they make
like shapes run the world.
They run the world.
They're like
girls.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's and triangles. I think triangles are like snobby or something like that, because there is something kind of withholding. Like they'll fit in, but not enough. But yet they'll also the most stable.
The word I would use is misanthropic. I think triangles are misanthropic, but they are not team players when they have to be.
Yeah, no, they're incredibly useful
because you can bring a bunch of triangles together and they get the job done, and then they'll go separate ways. But you will, but with a square, it might have the illusion of like getting the gun, but they're not really interacting.
No, and they fall apart.
They fall apart with the little bit of stress.
Yeah. But I think that they coast on the fact that they're like perfect, right? Like four right angles, and yet they do not have anything on circles in terms of perfection, because circles inherently are like perfect, right? So perfect that we can't actually ever physically draw a circle, right? We are not like humans cannot make a circle, right?
Like, yeah, that means 100%. But like, now that we've discussed it, and now I'm thinking about it, I think actually the most noble shape is the triangle. I think you've made me a pro-triangleist.
Noble, most noble.
Because look.
Well, the triangle is so perfect in its own way. Too. So like an equilateral.
But it will come together and it will bear up to stress, and then but it doesn't necessarily. Its natural space is to be alone. Whereas like a tile, like with a hex, like you put hexes with like, I don't know how strong a hex is gonna keep together. But like a triangle, they'll bear with it.
They can take the weight of the world.
Exactly, a little bit. So
they're like mothers.
And here's whereas the hex maybe will do that too. The hex wants to, the triangle doesn't want to, but does it regardless because it's supposed to.
The hex has no interest in being part of any structural integrity, whereas the triangle is like, you need me.
And so in that way, I think triangles have been underrated now.
Maybe.
I think my favorite shape is a triangle.
Wow. I have to say, by the way, I also, when we talk about squares, another thing I don't like about squares is that they get all this attention for being, like four sides the same. But like what about a sweet rhombus? You know, a rhombus gets totally overlooked. We don't even really have much rhombus, representation in board games. There's like Azul, I think Azul Summer Palace maybe, or one of the Azuls. There's like, you might find a rhombus, but like we don't get much rhombus action, and they're totally overlooked. So I feel bad for rhombi. I don't know rhombi. I'll tell you, the trapezoid. I have a soft spot in my heart for the trapezoid because I think they're cute, but they're not cut out for it. They're not cut out for board games. Let's be honest. They're not. They're not.
No, you speak some truths, hard truths here.
It's just like trapezoids are just ultimately they're just not a varsity level shape, No,
I get it. I think they're not very symmetrical.
And I'll tell you,
aside for
which one's a bad one too, parallelogram. I mean, why even? They look like they're about to fall over. It feels like if you step on them, they're just going to flatten.
So here's the thing, I feel that
don't even parallelogram.
Don't even parallelogram part.
Like a rhombus, okay, but not a parallelogram.
Like I look at a rhombus and I go like, oh, it's basically an off-center square,
right?
And I think that's actually like it's like when you have like someone who looks like an actor, they could almost be an actor. Like it's like this is the busted version of the Tom Cruise. This is the busted version, and I feel like that's how rhombuses feel.
Yeah,
and because rectangles are basically the common folk.
Yeah.
So now you're going. This is one delta off a common folk, and so it just.
Well,
question. It's not great. It's not great.
What about box sizes? Like, do you want a rectangle box or a square box? And why not? What about a circular box?
I feel that I'm a square box person.
I think that I like a square box too, because you don't have to think about how you're going to slot it into a bag.
Yeah.
It just goes. So I think that's where squares, for me, I'm going to say squares shine the most in board gaming in boxes. As boxes. I think a circular box can just go to hell. I don't even know why I don't think we have too many of them, thankfully. Yeah. I do have a game that is in a can, and that's very annoying. But circle boxes don't need it. And definitely don't need heart-shaped boxes. No, don't need that. Because that will have, like a can.
Sure.
No, don't need that. But I think square as box is best.
Yeah, well, I think the market proves that.
But there's still like rectangular boxes.
People try.
Yeah, people try. Not liking that. Yeah, so I think that's like, I'm trying to think if there's any other significant shapes that need to be discussed. We did touch on briefly the octagon from, octagons, pentagons. They're just sort of getting into sort of more esoteric shapes. Yeah, I think octagon really shines with a stop sign, and that's where it begins and ends for octagons.
I think they had their day.
Or ultimate fighting, I guess, like MMA octagons. Woohoo!
Well, here, if you want to really dive into it, like octagon seems like an uppity, uppity hexagon trying to be a circle.
Yeah, it's a socially aspiring hex. I agree,
and it had the try hard energy.
Yeah, very much. It's like you can't really
just
know
say stop sign.
You can't know it. Yeah, like it's just there.
Yeah, just be a stop sign. You got your slot.
Yeah. I think that's it for shapes that I can think of. There's probably other shape examples in games, but I can't think of any other right now.
No, I think
we really covered. I think
we finally got to the very needed. I think people have been asking for this.
So I think that in conclusion, so best shape a circle. No,
your favorite
triangle. My favorite circle. Your favorite's triangle.
But
best is hex.
Yeah,
I think there's a reason why.
Exactly.
But we agree. Worst is square. Emotionally worse is
emotionally worse is square.
Like obviously, like octagon is like there's like shapes.
There are different reasons, but square is the jerk.
Square is the jerk. Square is the jerk because it has the highest, like in the ratio in terms of like presence versus utility. It's more the jerk because like octagons are stupid, but like we don't have to deal with them that often.
And I think here's the thing. I think a lot of people would be high on squares. I think that's what
I think we'll find a lot of squares out there. But there's a reason why if you call someone a square, it's not a great thing.
Yeah, no,
100%. It's squares. It's already built in. They already have kind of a shit reputation.
Yeah, like I think they're hurting.
Hurt shapes hurt people.
Yeah, that's right. Hurt shapes hurt people. I think that's I mean maybe like look at it.
I think we figured it out. Yeah.
I know people that we've had a lot of viewers asking us about, the best shapes for. I hope we
Yeah, this has been a pressing issue, and I think that I would love to see though some innovation in terms of shapes and board games. Because you know what? By the way, if someone does an octagon board game, although like my copy of Can't Stop is a big octagon because it's a stop sign.
Sure.
But like, I'm open to a trapezoidal experience.
I think a pentagon experience would be Belfort, right? That's the only.
Yeah,
I think it's the only pentagon that I know.
I think there may be like another one out there, but I'm sure there's like there's so many games, but like what about Star Shape? Star Shape in a board game, like a star shaped board.
Chinese checkers.
I'm about to say Chinese checkers. That's a pentagon, actually.
No,
no,
it's not.
I don't know. I haven't played it forever.
It's a hexagon with 6 triangles.
Oh yeah. I keep on looking at the hexagons behind us to make sure. Be like, oh yeah, that's what it looks like.
But I think I don't know if shapes. I wonder if we've solved it as far as not here, but like I don't know if there is any needed shape that.
I think a game is going to come along that's going to be a real shape disruptor.
Okay, wow.
And we're going to realize there was a shape that we've been sleeping on all this time and actually makes for great gaming. It might be trapezoid. I think trapezoid could be it.
Yeah, like I was reading this article about a new shape that was discovered. And basically one of these topological math problems was like, what is the least number of sides for or the most number of sides for a shape that can tile out infinitely? So like how a hexagon this could go infinitely, right? A square can go infinitely, but you put an octagon, it could not do that. And anyway, and so one was found, and I was trying to read the article, like this is the most dull thing ever.
But by the way, rhombus is great for that. Like rhombus, you could make these big, beautiful like tessellations.
Sure. Well, so rhombus just is a little off square. So like
yeah. They sort of have like they kind of have they have some of the interlocking abilities of a hexagon, and they also have some of that kind of coldness of a triangle, and they have a little bit of the square thing, but it's almost like they don't have enough of their own thing to really break through.
They're not a real shape. They're a variation of a shape. Get a real personality. Thank you.
Yeah. Be yourself.
That's
like
right.
Stop singing.
Find yourself. Like
stop singing karaoke and like sing you.
Yeah, and I think that I'm not known as a avid rhombus hater, but now like I guess I am very much about people being.
You are a little negative on the rhombus. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I'm pretty pro rhombus.
Like for me, like I'm going like find who you really are, and I think like the rhombus goes like I'm nothing without the square.
You know what I say to the rhombus?
What's that?
Grow up.
Grow up. That's right.
Grow up.
Nowhere to grow but up.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was a really good meditation on shapes. I feel like I don't know if we got to the bottom of anything. I think we just talked about things, but that's okay.
It's a chat show.
It's a chat show. Table Scraps is a chat show, and we chatted about shapes, and we figured out like what our favorite shapes are. We figured out what our least favorite shapes are. We know that hexagons are going to be they're the supreme shape of board gaming, and we figured it all out. So
we solved it.
I feel pretty good about it. Yeah, it's good times.
Ben, good job.
Thanks. You too, Paul.